Why was Ten Hag's press so effective, how Manchester United exploited Liverpool defensively, and why Ten Hag's personnel change at half-time was so effective. But before I get into that, I have got a special announcement from the sponsors of today's video, OneFootball, which is now the place where on a Saturday night, if you're in the UK or Ireland, you can watch one free Italian Serie A game each weekend. As well as this, you can also use all the other football features that I've spoken about before with OneFootball. So if you are interested in watching European football, but just don't have anywhere to watch it, then you can go to the competition page linked in the description, and you can check out the free match that will be streamed this weekend. You can also watch highlights of all the Serie A games, and near live instant clips as well whilst the games are going on. And by downloading the OneFootball app, you will be helping to support the channel. So Ten Hag's defensive system worked perfectly, particularly in the first half. When coming up against Liverpool, you need to find a way to shut down the fullbacks, Trent Alexander-Arnold and Andy Robertson, who are Klopp's two best progressors of the ball from deep positions. But you also need to try to negate your central midfield getting overrun, with Firmino playing as a false 9 rather than holding an advanced position. And throughout the majority of the game, I felt Ten Hag's tactical plan suppressed Liverpool's ability to get the most out of either of these two areas. From the start of the game, we saw Manchester United pressing Liverpool in a 4-2-3-1 shape, as Klopp's side used a 2-3-3-2 shape in possession, with Rashford leading the press in Liverpool's defensive third, as Sancho and Elanga maintained high positions, ready to pressurise Trent and Robertson if they received the ball, and Bruno Fernandes sat on Henderson, who played in that deep single pivot role. Ten Hag did this in order to enable his side to man-to-man press Liverpool's 2-3 shape in their build-up phase, and in the centre of the pitch, Liverpool did have a 3v2 as Firmino played an extremely withdrawn false 9 role, dropping between McTominay and Eriksen, with Harvey Elliott and James Milner pushed up either side of those two. Salah and Diaz would hold their width in the attack, with Diaz inclined to drift more into a central position when Firmino vacated that area. Now the idea behind this tactically was right from Klopp, so I can see what he was going for, trying to progress the ball through the centre of the pitch and into the final third, with Elanga and Sancho in advanced positions creating a 3 behind Rashford in order to press Liverpool high up the pitch. This left space either side and between United's double pivot. The issue for Liverpool was that they couldn't play out of United's frontline press, and this was firstly because of the man-to-man orientation, which allowed United to apply pressure to a player receiving the ball almost instantly, and secondly because United's press was extremely well coordinated, with each player moving tight to their man as soon as the ball was shifted across the pitch by Liverpool. An example of this was down the flank on the left side. When the ball moved out to Robertson, Sancho would initiate the press, which would act as a signal for Dalot to squeeze onto Diaz, which meant that if the ball did go down the line to the Colombian, Dalot's immediate pressure would stop him being able to turn with the ball. Fernandes would squeeze onto Henderson and McTominay onto whichever Liverpool player was stationed in that left channel, meaning that all of Diaz's passing options would be marked, and this is where Liverpool's attack would often break down. United were fantastic in the first half at holding a high defensive position, but still allowing Gomez and Van Dijk time on the ball, which allowed them to compress the space in the centre of the pitch. Ten Hag also instructed Rashford and Fernandes to use a pass back to the centre-backs or goalkeeper as a trigger to initiate the aggressive press, and this would act as a signal for the rest of the players to push up onto their man to create a vertically compact press. Because Firmino was dropping into the midfield, Liverpool had a 3v2 with Elliott, Milner and Firmino against McTominay and Eriksen, and so Lisandro Martinez was given the freedom to play as a stopper centre-back, pushing out of the backline when necessary to pick up one of those three. Ten Hag's side did a very good job of stopping Liverpool being able to progress the ball out of their half, but when Klopp's side were able to do this, United would drop off into a 4-4-1-1 shape, with Sancho and Elanga dropping back to close the space either side of Eriksen and McTominay, with Sancho and Elanga also being prepared to track the runs of Trent and Robertson down the flanks as well. In possession, we saw United use a 2-4-3-1 shape, with Elanga and Sancho being instructed to hold their width high up the pitch, as Bruno Fernandes sat between the lines in behind Rashford. Eriksen was being used in that deep position alongside McTominay instead of Fred, who had partnered McTominay in the opening game against Brighton. Over the years, we have seen Klopp deploy a narrow 4-3-3 out of possession, where the two wide forwards either side of Firmino would retain a high and narrow position. This would make Liverpool's pressing shape very horizontally compact, and with the backline pushing high up the pitch as well, this would lead to Klopp creating a pressing shape that was both horizontally and vertically compact. However, in this game we saw the two wide forwards, Diaz from the left and Mo Salah from the right, playing deeper and wider, creating a midfield 5, giving Liverpool a 4-5-1 defensive shape. Now maybe Klopp went for this in order to close off the space on the flanks for the fullbacks and force United's centre-backs to have the ball, but I think it actually stemmed from Ten Hag negating Liverpool's ability to counter-press. We saw this against Brighton, but in particular against Brentford, where United attempted to play out from the back, and because they don't have the players in those deeper areas who are comfortable playing out under pressure, it was just setting themselves up to be counter-pressed. Brentford did this through pushing Jensen onto Eriksen, and this did lead to Brentford's second goal, but both Harry Maguire and David De Gea also showed their liabilities in this phase of play. And so I think Ten Hag made the correct call instructing United to go along in the defensive third, rather than trying to build up methodically and potentially playing themselves into one of Liverpool's pressing traps. Liverpool did have one successful counter-press in the first half, when Bruno Fernandes was caught on the ball in his own defensive third, but that came 28 minutes into the game, and apart from this time, United didn't give Liverpool those sorts of opportunities. And this is where top managers are able to separate themselves from the rest, and where pragmatism can be essential. If Ten Hag had stuck rigidly to his philosophy and persisted with playing out from the back, then United probably cause themselves more problems than they do benefits. Going long nullified one of Liverpool's most effective offensive weapons, which is their counter-press. United on the other hand were able to use their counter-press to full effect. An example is here. Luis Diaz receives a ball on the left flank, but you can see that United's press is so well coordinated that Sancho, McTominay and Dalot have blocked off all the passing lanes, forcing Diaz to go back to Robertson. From here, Robertson's only option is to go down the line. His pass is intercepted by McTominay, and now we can see where the opportunity to counter-press comes into play. A counter-press, also referred to as a gegenpress, basically just means that you use the press as an offensive weapon. You press to win the ball back in the opposition half, as Manchester United did here, and rather than looking for a sideways or backwards pass to retain possession, the players are instructed to immediately look for a direct vertical ball, in order to take advantage of the opposition side being stretched and out of their defensive shape. And this is what United did here, with McTominay actually pulling off almost a perfect pass, finding Bruno Fernandes' forward run, who works in tandem with Rashford. See, if Rashford had also looked to make a movement in behind the Liverpool back line, then this would see Van Dijk drop off, but instead Rashford looks to receive the ball to feet, which keeps Van Dijk high, and because Liverpool's centre-backs have been pulled apart in possession, there is a massive space between Gomez and Van Dijk for Fernandes to run into. He makes a run and the pass is slightly overhit, but Fernandes is just able to get there before Joe Gomez turns the ball perfectly into the path of Elanga, who should score, but his side foot hits the post, and this was a chance that you would have felt that United would regret not taking later on in the game. However, United did eventually get the opening goal, and it came from some intricate play down the left wing. See, Ten Hag went with two natural wingers in this game, Sancho from the right and Elanga from the left, with the view of having them hold their width, receive the ball, and then subsequently being able to isolate the Liverpool fullback in a 1v1, and particularly Trent on the right side, who is the weaker of the two Liverpool fullbacks from a positional and one-on-one defending point of view. However, I did think that Elanga was pretty poor in the first half, which explains why Ten Hag subbed him for Martial at half time. He had a couple of opportunities to drive past Trent in 1v1s, but failed earlier on in the game. However, when he received the ball on the left flank from Lisandro Martinez, he was able to play a quick 1-2 with Christian Eriksen, run off the back of Alexander-Arnold, and he played the cut back towards the penalty area at the perfect moment. From here, Sancho has ice-cold composure under pressure to sit Milner and Alisson on the floor before calmly slotting the ball into the net. And it was United's directness in the attack that really enabled them to exploit Liverpool, and in particular Liverpool's high back line. There was a number of times in the first half when Rashford was able to make runs in behind the centre-backs, and United were looking for those killer through balls, but he always seemed to get shifted slightly too wide to create a goal-scoring opportunity. However, when Ten Hag moved Rashford over to the left side, rather than making runs starting from a central position, that often led to him running into a wider position to receive the through ball. From the wider position, he was able to make a diagonal run into a central position, giving him better goal scoring opportunities, and we saw this with the second United goal. So Liverpool moved the ball out to Alexander-Arnold on the right side, who really was Liverpool's only real outlet to progress the ball into United's defensive third, via his deep crosses or long passes, but despite this he wasn't very effective. He plays a long aimless ball that Varane wins easily, heading it out, and eventually Henderson's poor touch knocks the ball into the path of Martial, and Van Dijk overcommits, allowing Martial to race forward with the ball, and from this position United are completely at the mercy of the United attackers. The extremely high backline gives Rashford plenty of space to run into, and because he's running at an angle towards goal, when Martial plays that pass, Rashford is now running straight on goal with a 1v1 against Alisson, and he, like Sancho in the first half, has ice-cold composure and slots it past Alisson to give United a 2-0 lead. What United did well in the second half was that rather than dropping off into a deep compact defensive unit, which a lot of sides do, and allow Liverpool to work the ball out of their defensive third easily, United instead maintained a high defensive shape in the 4-2-3-1, and this stopped Liverpool simply being able to carry the ball forward and pin United back in their own half. Obviously Liverpool found it a lot easier to control possession in the middle third in the second half, with United's pressing intensity just naturally declining, but Ten Hag's side would drop off into a compact 4-4-2 shape, protecting the central areas. As good as Ten Hag's system was both in and out of possession, a lot of credit has to be given to individual players. Both Dalot and Malacia were excellent defensively, with both being assertive and aggressive when moving out to close down Salah and Diaz and stopping them being able to turn and drive at them, avoiding a lot of potentially vulnerable positions. Varane and Lisandro Martinez showed their composure, dominance and technical defending ability that United have lacked with Maguire and Lindelof in that backline over the past year or so. Martinez, who I have got a video coming out very soon, so make sure you subscribe to the channel and click the bell to get notified when that comes out, showcased that despite being shorter than a conventional centre-back, he has the reading of the game, positioning and tackling ability to be a top level centre-back, and partnered alongside the more aerially and physically dominant Rafael Varane, and Manchester United had a centre-back partnership that were really able to dominate Liverpool's front line. Christian Eriksen's technical ability made a huge difference in those deeper areas of the pitch, and his interplay with Bruno Fernandes acts as a link between the deeper midfield and forward line. Rashford had a fantastic game, restoring the composure and confidence that he seemed to have lost, and Martial played the role of a deep lying forward, holding up and linking the attack extremely well in the second half. Now, despite United's almost perfect performance, I felt Liverpool severely underperformed. Their midfield of Henderson, Milner and Elliott had little to no creativity, and they were far too reliant on Trent to progress the ball forward and Salah to produce a moment of magic in the final third. I think Liverpool should have been able to exploit United's midfield double pivot a lot more than they were able to, as they had a 3v2 advantage when Firmino dropped off, and had they been able to play those vertically direct passes into one of those three's feet, but had other players like Thiago or Keita in there, then I think their interplay would have been a lot more slick, and we would have seen Liverpool being able to play through and around McTominay and Eriksen a lot more effectively, and this subsequently would have allowed them better opportunities in the final third. Obviously those two were unavailable, but having to rely on a declining Jordan Henderson, an aging James Milner and a young Harvey Elliott shows that Liverpool should have significantly improved their squad depth this summer in that part of the pitch. Now, before I come on to what this means for the rest of Manchester United's season, just a quick announcement that anyone who wants to create a TikTok page, YouTube Shorts channel, Twitter or Instagram page can take clips from my videos, edit over them if you want, and then upload them to your own page. You can keep any revenue or followers you get from that. Just link my channel or the original video in the comments or the description. So I guess the question that most Manchester United fans will be asking is what can be taken from this game for the rest of the season? And to be honest, I would advise caution. We saw under Ole United's ability to beat top 6 teams using this vertically direct counter-attacking style, but then struggle throughout the rest of the season when this style of play wasn't as viable against lower block sides who would look to frustrate United and put the emphasis on their creativity from deep rather than their creativity further up the pitch. And this would be my concern. Not every team is going to play as high as Liverpool did, and so United can't rely on Rashford, Elanga and Sancho having the space in behind to exploit. Not only this, but Liverpool having 70% possession and United using a counter-pressing style involving a more direct style when in possession meant that the likes of McTominay, Eriksen as well as the fullbacks and centre-backs weren't required to break down a deep defensive unit as they faced against Brentford and Brighton in the previous 2 games. Despite Scott McTominay having one of his best games in quite a while, I still think he has no place, certainly in the starting 11, and almost certainly will be replaced by Casemiro, who I think will drastically transform United's midfield, making them a lot harder to play through in the centre of the pitch. I did do a full video analysing Casemiro's signing, so I'll leave that linked in the description, but just from this game, when you look at United's front 4 pushing up, pressing so aggressively in the opposition's defensive third, you can see how having an elite level ball winning midfielder in that midfield double pivot will make United's press even more effective. I think that everyone would agree that Lisandro Martinez and Rafael Varane have to keep their starting spots, as the improvement from Maguire was night and day. Malacia and Dalot also showed hugely promising signs from a defensive point of view, but I do still think there's a question mark over Dalot in possession for me, as whilst he can drive down the right with the ball when the space is there and does have a good long range pass on him, I'm not sure whether at the moment he's at the level needed to play in congested areas under pressure, which I think is something that Ten Hag may look to use, utilising inverted fullbacks, with him seemingly favouring the use of 2 natural wingers as the width providers in the system. But nonetheless, there are still a lot of positives to take from the game. David De Gea showcased his reaction saves and ultimately why he's still so highly regarded. However, Ten Hag did cater towards his strengths, or should I say cater against his weaknesses, as he did instruct De Gea to go long rather than looking to build up from the back, so I still think that United are going to face major issues when they revert to Ten Hag's usual possession style, as even with the addition of Casemiro and the removal of Maguire and Shaw from the side, United still lack a midfielder in the mode of a Frankie de Jong, who can be that top level press resistant regista in the build up phase, which I do think is the key to United being able to fully instill Ten Hag's style most effectively. But overall, a tactical masterclass from Ten Hag against Jurgen Klopp, and it's got to be United's best performance in probably just over a year or so. So thank you for watching, give the video a like if you enjoyed it, put some constructive criticism in the comment section below, check out some of my other videos which will be linked in the description, subscribe to the channel and click the bell for more videos, and follow me on Twitter and Instagram for more content as well, those will be linked in the description as well.